Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and we are here today to discuss another week of Big Brother. We are going to do a mini recap of Big Brother because we have a lot of other things to get to this week. We are going to do a very quick debrief on the season of Beyond the Villa. We covered the first couple weeks of that, and it's been a few weeks since we talked about it. The finale just dropped this past week, so we wanted to just kind of wrap things up with that. And then we have a big one, the Love Island USA Season 7 reunion. It was a 2 hour extravaganza, and there was a lot of content there that we need to get through. So, why don't we just dive into a little bit of Big Brother here, Molly, shall we?
Yes, let's do it. It's exciting to talk about Love Island because it's been a little while since we've talked about it.
It has. It does feel like quite a while. It feels like we've been seeing them on our social media screens ever since then, but we haven't actually talked about them on here in a few weeks since the finale dropped. So we have a lot to cover with that. But first, we're doing a very quick recap of Big Brother 27 this past week. We're not going to go into a lot of the details and nitty gritty of it, but we definitely didn't want to miss it out on this week. So let's get started where we left off with Vince's nominations of Kelly, Mickey, and Ava. Mickey was his target at the time when he made those nominations, but going into the veto competition, we had Vince, Mickey, Ava, Kelly, Will, and Keanu competing, and it was a fun veto comp, I actually thought. It
Yeah.
was a new competition for Big Brother, similar to things we've seen on other shows, but each round one person picked between two glasses of wine, one of which was poisoned, and they chose a target who, similar to like the knockout competition, where they get to choose someone and they will give one of those glasses of wine to that person, with the target not knowing if they were given the poisoned one or the not poisoned one. And they decide if their opponent is telling them the truth or not, whether they were given the poisoned one or not. And then whoever ends up drinking the poisoned wine ends up getting eliminated after drinking two of those. And Mickey ends up winning this veto here. But Molly, what did you think about this new competition?
I enjoyed it. I felt like it was fun to watch and see what, like, whoever target they was or whenever they were trying to poison someone or not, like, if they thought it was poison or not. And then the theatrics all related to that too was fun because they were, like, making it seem like they actually died.
Yeah, they
So,
have foamed at the mouth. I thought that
yeah.
was really fun. I don't know how they even did that.
I know. I don't know. I was really confused. Not confused, but I was like, okay, well, something in there is just making it foam. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. I hope they continue to do this challenge.
I do too. I really like it because I think it hits a lot of the points that I look for in a challenge where there is some having to choose your competitor, similar to a knockout comp, where you can play that strategically to keep picking people who you do not want to win the veto, giving them more and more chance to potentially pick the wrong glass of wine and get eliminated. So I like that aspect of it, although it can be a little dangerous if there's like one big alliance that just keep picking the same person over and over again. But in theory, I like it. And then it was very theatrical, very campy, and I feel like that's just very classic Big Brother. And I thought the costumes were great, the set was great, everything about it I really, really enjoyed. So yeah, I agree. I hope that this becomes a regular comp because this isn't a physical competition, and I think we need more and more that are not physical so that these big guys don't just keep winning competitions like we saw at its peak in BB25.
Exactly.
Well, like I said before, Mickey ends up winning this veto, which of course threw a wrench into Vince's plans as she was his target. So he ends up debating back and forth about whether to renom Catherine or Rachel. Those are basically the two names that are coming up from the opposing sides of the house. And he is, when I say he's going back and forth, he was all this entire 3 days between veto comp and veto meeting were just everyone going up to him and constantly in his HOH room because everyone knows that Vince is very easily persuaded. And so whoever he's talking to, he's going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. He's going to go back and forth. He is bad at making decisions. He's very whiny. I mean, I'm not even going to try to do the Vince impression that Taron Armstrong so beautifully does on his live feed updates, but he is just, I mean, people calling him Weasel, and I'm not going to say they're wrong.
I know. Oh my gosh. I felt like I didn't even know, like, going into until he got actually nominated Catherine there, like what was gonna happen. Because he was just so back and forth.
The crazy thing was that right before the veto meeting, he is having a talk with Rachel because I think if my memory serves, the night before when we all went everyone went to bed, that he was really had set on nominating Catherine, and then he woke up that morning and he was like, you know what? I think I might do Rachel. Because Morgan is the one who really spent all night with him, and she was really heavily campaigning for Catherine. And so it seemed like she was the last one to get in his ear. And we had all the wine gate, which was ended up on the show the night before with Kelly and Rachel fighting. And then Keanu told Vince that Rachel told him about, ratted Vince out to her. And or to him, and it was just, yeah, it kind of just that pulled him towards nominating Rachel, and then Morgan was able to pull him back, it seemed like, and then he woke up that morning and he was back again to just making the big move and putting up Rachel. And then Rachel went into his HOH room right before, and he said to her, I'm about to tell you the biggest compliment that I could ever tell you. And then the feed's cut. And it's like, what was he about to tell her? Is he telling her that he's nominating her? Is he telling her that he's not nominating her? Like, it seemed like she was making progress, but it was like truly unknown, which is so rare on Big Brother that we actually feeds cut going into the meeting and we don't know what's going to happen. And that was the case this last week.
I know, so much drama. It was like, oh my gosh, what's it gonna be? But we got lucky.
Yes, we did. We really, really did. And Catherine was put up on the block. And after the veto meeting, Keanu is upset with Vince for burning him once again. Vince keeps disappointing Keanu, and I think Keanu is the type of person who just like he respects, a man, big moves, decisive, like everything like stereotypical manly, and Vince is not that. Vince is everything opposite of whatever Keanu respects in a man. And so he just like lays into him in the gym, and he's like trying to be motivational, but it's like Vince isn't really having it, isn't being very receptive. He's very like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And Keanu just isn't letting up. And Rachel's also upset with Keanu because she found out from Vince that Keanu was trying to get her nominated. So she's not talking to Keanu. It's a lot of tension. It's very, very tense in the house at this point.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I felt like we could have gotten more in the episode that came out because I knew there was so much happening, like in the feeds of that. But I'm glad that the episode still showed us a lot of that fighting and things going on. So people who don't watch the feeds are able to understand like all that really was going on in the house. But yeah, I felt bad for Rachel finding out about Kiana wanting to target her because she thought that she could trust him and all of that. And obviously the frenemies, we'll see how that evolves, if it's still going to be a thing for much longer or not. I mean, spoiler alert, is like she didn't get put up this week with him as HOH, so looking on the bright side there. But I feel like it's still on rocky terms.
Yeah, they are going to just be constantly up and I mean, frenemies is the right word for it with them because they are just like every other day go back and forth whether they love or hate each other, and it's fun to watch their
Yeah.
relationship. It is. It's frustrating because it's like Rachel, just stop trusting Keanu. Like, how many more things does he have to do for you to just give up on him and just like fully be enemies and not frenemies, but it's a good thing that she didn't, that she at least like kind of mended things and had a good conversation before he won HOH, because spoiler, he does win HOH, and this would have been really bad for her if they had ended up where they were right after this veto ceremony, because you know He's been saying that he doesn't want to put up Rachel because he wants somebody else to do it and to put her in jury because she's not going to vote for whoever evicts her and she's going to be bitter. And so he doesn't want to do that. So I did have some hope at the time, but yeah, their relationship is just it's an interesting one to watch for sure. But the consensus here was to evict Kelly if she didn't win the blockbuster competition and evict Catherine against Ava. So whoever Kelly was against, she was likely going to be going home. And if it was Catherine versus Ava, Catherine would be evicted. This really didn't change much throughout the week. There was a little bit of a push towards the end to evict Catherine against Kelly potentially. Morgan was really pushing for that. And Rachel a little bit too, but it didn't really land. Like if that had ended up being the case, I think we would have 100% seen Kelly leave. But there was a little bit of a push for something to happen there.
Yeah, it definitely felt like if Kelly wasn't going to be the winner there, that she would have gone home.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. And we didn't know have to necessarily know that though, because Kelly once again wins the blockbuster. She is a cockroach in this game. Can't get rid of her. I don't know what it is. It really, it's frustrating because I think a lot of the fans would like to see Kelly out of the house at this point, but she is somehow still there. So Catherine and Ava are on the block at this point, and it's not much of a dramatic vote here. Catherine's evicted in a vote of 7-1, with Lauren being the only vote to evict Ava.
Yeah, I mean, this was expected. The way that they were setting up the episode, though, it kind of was like, wait, are they going to vote for Ava here? But I think they were just trying to skew people's minds in that. But overall, I mean, obviously, I'd rather have Catherine leave over Ava, but it wasn't ideal that Kelly won that blockbuster to take herself off.
Yeah, it was one of those weeks where it's like, okay, whatever happens, as long as Rachel's not on the block, like, it's not a disaster. But I definitely would have preferred Kelly to leave over Catherine, if only because I really wanted to see Catherine in the game without Riley. And we got to see just 1 week of it, but I think that this week wasn't a good representation of what it would have been like because she was still reeling from him leaving. Like, I think this coming week we would have been able to see, okay, she's over Riley leaving. Oh, maybe not over, but like she's accepted it, moved on from it, and can fully be in the game as her own person without him. And I think we would have been able to see really what her potential, if any, would have been. And she did campaign. She was the only nominee really to campaign for herself this week. So, if nothing else, I just feel like Kelly is we know what we're going to get from Kelly. There's really nothing left for her to like show us in this game at this point. So I would have preferred Catherine, but it is what it is.
Agreed. And I'm still curious to see what her thoughts are now that she's out because I feel like a lot of the interviews we've seen have been her saying nice things about Riley. So I'm like, when is she going to know? And we need the tea.
Yeah, I mean, most of the exit interviews that she did, she was obviously asked about Riley and kind of told, look, Riley didn't come off the best on the feeds. And she was saying, what do you think about that? And she was fully defending him and saying she didn't think her opinion was going to change on it. And she's kind of surprised to see that the fans felt the way that they did and that she didn't feel uncomfortable. She was fully into the relationship and that she did not feel at all like she was treating her poorly. And so of course at that point she had not spoken to her family yet. She had not watched any of the episodes, watched any clips. So I I want to give her grace and room for her to change her mind, even though she specifically said to Sharon Tharp that Sharon said, do you reserve the right to change your opinion once you see more? And she's like, I don't think I'm going to change my mind. So even when she said that, I'm still going to give her that opportunity because I think it's very easy for her to, in this moment, like she had just left the house, what, 12 hours before? Like
Yeah.
she's not in the right frame of mind to fully, like, take in all of this information. So we have not, as far as I know, we have not heard from her since then publicly. So who knows? But I would certainly be interested to see now that some time has passed what her feelings are, if any.
I know. I'm excited to see that when we do get to see it and hear more about it.
Yes. Well, then we get to our HOH competition. It is a classic question and answer about some gifts that showed up on the memory wall for them to memorize. A classic HOH comp that we get almost every season, some version of it. Keanu ends up winning, though. This is his first HOH, and he is somebody who I think all the fans were like, what's he gonna do? We don't really know because he has not won HOH before. What type of HOH is he gonna be like? So I thought this was an interesting result, if nothing else.
Yeah. No, I was nervous at first because I was thinking he might want to put up Rachel, but obviously then when she was making amends there and then they had more conversations, he made it clear that he wouldn't put her up. So then I was like, okay, we're good then.
Yeah, I got a text from you when I woke up that morning, and you were like, "I'm nervous about Keanu being HOH," and I'm like, "Hold on, I think we're okay here." Like they made up, they had a good conversation before he won, and with everything that he had said in his camera talks a few days before that, it really didn't seem like he wanted to be the one to get out Rachel, and he wanted Rachel in jury. So I was like, I think we're okay, but you never know. You really never know in BB27 what anyone's going to do. So always a little scary, but he does tell Vince after winning that Morgan is his target since he thinks that she told Rachel about him wanting her on the block last week. So somehow Keanu's going to find a way to blame a woman over a man somehow, some way, and he is not going to blame Vince for that. He's going to say Morgan's the one who told her. So, you know, whatever. But he Morgan is his target here, and he is also though planning on nominating Vince since Vince has sent multiple of his allies home, and he would likely use the veto on Morgan if he were to win it, and he was not on the block. So he wants to make sure that that doesn't happen. So he's going to put them both up together, and Vince begs him not to because he basically, if he talks to Vince, he's like, "You going home isn't the worst case scenario for me," and Vince is begging. He that man has no shame, and he is going to do what it takes. But Keanu's really not phased by it.
No, Vince was crying and trying to bring out all these emotions, and Keanu's just like, I don't care.
Basically,
Yeah.
basically. Well, Keanu tells Rachel that he's not nominating her and that he wants to get back to working with her. Rachel apologizes for blindsiding him with the Riley nomination. They agree to get back to working together again. I mean, of course, Rachel's gonna say what she needs to say to not get nominated here, but I do think that it seems like it's genuine. I think on both parts that they do want to work together for a little while here. I do think in the back of Keanu's mind, though, I think he still knows that he can't sit next to Rachel in the final two. And I don't know if Rachel, I think Rachel at this point is just like, I'll sit next to anyone in Final Two if I can just get there. But I don't know. I definitely don't think this is where their story ends of them just working together and skipping happily to the Final Two together.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more to come on that. But we shall see.
We shall see. Well, Keanu ends up nominating Morgan, Vince, and Mickey. Unsurprisingly, here, Mickey was not his target, but just somebody who hasn't really worked with closely and an easy person for him to nominate. So those three were very much expected. But then let's get to the feed spoilers here because there's been a lot going on the last 24 hours or so. So after nominations, Keanu basically realized that he does not actually want Vinny to stay on the block because he might actually go home over Morgan. If it's Vince versus Morgan, a vote, Vince could very easily go home on eviction night, and that's not what he wants. So his plan was to have Vince taken off with whoever won the veto and replaced with Ashley, who he would be much more okay going home. It's Ashley, somebody who he's wanted to nominate for weeks now if he won HOH and basically just didn't this week because he wanted to prove his loyalty to Rachel. But now he's realizing it's better to have Ashley on the block. A better that way, whatever happens, it doesn't really matter. And Ashley probably won't go home, is less likely to go home than Vince is on eviction night. So Morgan wins the veto, though, which totally disrupts this plan because the veto picks were very much stacked in the favor of Vince being taken off the block. It was not looking good for the other side of the house there. and Morgan was one of the only people who could win that fully broke whatever plan Keanu had here. So his target's off, and now he has to figure out what to do here. So he is thinking and comes up with this harebrained idea that is just sounds totally wild, that maybe we can get Morgan to use the veto on Vince. Telling her that Lauren would go up in his place, she wouldn't. It would be Ashley. But if she thinks that it would be Lauren, that maybe she'd be willing to do it. And of course the logical thing is, why can't Ashley just go up if she uses it on herself? But he keeps repeating, I can't do 1 for 1. It has to be 2 for 1. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's literally nonsense, but somehow Morgan's convinced by it. So she's like,
Well,
I get it. 1 for 1, 2 for 1. Yes, of course. And she really considers this all night. But then by the end of the night, it does seem like she has settled on not doing that, using it on herself. And Ashley is set to be her replacement. Sorry,
yeah.
that was a lot.
So that it was a lot, and I haven't been keeping up as much with the feeds lately because I was so busy yesterday. So that is also somewhat news to me. But I mean, that whole scheme by Keanu, how was he expecting that to work? Like that did not make sense.
Because it's BB-27 and you can get anyone to do anything if you just blabber nonsense at them.
That's true. That's facts.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy that Morgan even considered this for as long as she did. And I was like, at first, I was like, I don't know if she's actually considering this or whether she's just kind of telling them what they want to hear. But then I'm like, why is she even doing that? Like, why would she even give them any hope and then not do it? Like, that seems like that would just make an enemy out of them more so than just telling them from the start, like, I'm sorry, like, I have to use it on myself. Like, I hope you understand that. And she didn't. She seemed to consider it, but then she talked to Rachel, talked to Ashley, and they're like, what are you talking about, Morgan?" And I think that got to her. I think she started to really think about the just think about it logically. She sat with herself for a minute and was like, what if he doesn't put up Lauren though? Like, what if I use those on Vince and he still puts up Ashley? And I think that was the one thing that she couldn't rationalize to herself. And so as of right now, and we're recording this before the veto meeting on Monday, but it is seems like she is going to use it on herself, and Ashley will be put up. So logic has won at the end of the day here, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for Morgan to win, but I'm also sad that that means Ashley's going to go up now. So we'll
I
have to
am too.
see what's going to happen there. I hope, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the eviction, but I want it to be Mickey this week, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know what the votes are going to land on. Ava last night was told that there were that Rachel and Ashley and all them were okay with her going on the block because they I think had mentioned potentially like trying to get Ava instead of Ashley because they're Ashley Ava's not in the Judges Alliance, and so they were trying to potentially convince Keanu to put up Ava, and then Keanu went and told Ava about that, and so now Ava's not super happy with them, and maybe and promised to to not vote out Vinny. So to basically either whether it's Ashley or Mickey who he's up against, that she would vote them out, and so Ava is prone to changing her mind a million times before Thursday, so don't take anything she says now too seriously. But if that doesn't change, it does seem like Mickey could go home if especially if she's against Vinny, and certainly if she's against Ashley. So it's very possible that Mickey could go home here.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We will have to see, but for right now, let's go over to Love Island Beyond the Villa. So the finale dropped this past week. Not too much to talk about from the finale. I feel like all the drama really happened after they filmed, with the whole breakup of Kenny and Janae, and that was very briefly covered in the finale. They kind of put up a screen of all the headlines about that. But Molly, what were your just kind of overall thoughts on the season now that we've seen the full season here?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to be able to get a glimpse into their lives just because it had been a year since they'd been obviously like their lives blew up after their season last year. So it was fun just to catch up with them. But I feel like there were parts that I was like, all right, like this isn't that interesting. Like I want more or just like something more from it in general. And also now looking back on it too, of like about halfway through the season, we had the whole breakup with Janae and Kenny, where it's like now watching them together, you're like, all right, well, they're not together anymore, and this is a really bad situation. So it's kind of, I mean, it was interesting in some ways because we could actually then piece together things are that Kenny's saying here that you're like, oh, like that's interesting. And then like how he didn't want to live with her and all those things. And it's like, well, that's why. And she was obviously putting a lot of effort and love into the relationship there, and he just was not reciprocating that. So that was kind of hard to watch. I feel like I don't know if Janae was watching that back, but like that would have been hard for her to see that, I'm sure. But I feel like they could have maybe to picked up cameras or something to give us more of a closure on that. But I think Jenny probably just didn't want that to happen and didn't want to see Kenny again. But I'm glad that they did show it, at least in the finale of like 8 weeks after wrapping and all the news articles and things that this Instagram stories and all the breakup stuff. But as a whole, like I feel like I don't know how I feel if it's if I don't know if it'll get renewed or not. Like I don't think it was as big of a success as it could be.
Yeah, I thought it was a an interesting depiction of how overnight fame can affect your mental health,
Yeah.
and kind of behind the curtain how you can seem so happy on Instagram and TikTok, and how it just appears that their lives are this dream and that anyone would want to be them. And behind the scenes, you see these conversations with especially Aaron and Kaylor, and a bit of Kenny as well, where it's like, no, we kind of hate this. Like, I miss my life before the show, and just this simple, I could go out anywhere and not be recognized, and that this overnight fame, especially for this cast who went into Love Island not thinking that the show was a huge hit. Like in the US, it was a moderate success, enough to be renewed every year, but not in, or actually not by CBS, but um, that it wasn't like these people were getting recognized everywhere and getting this like A-list treatment. That they went into it not thinking that, and then they came out and it was suddenly like the show is the biggest thing in America, and they are actual like celebrities with millions of followers, and it's just must be incredibly wild to have lived that. And that this show really depicted how that isn't always a good thing, and that that these people are not as happy necessarily as they seem to be online. And so I thought that part of the show was very interesting. But I agree. There, like at the time of filming, there just wasn't a whole lot going on in their lives that was all that interesting. If they were to film it now, yeah, sure. If Kenny and Janae were both willing to film, we have a show here, folks. But I don't know that we need to see a season two with this exact cast again. I think if they decide to keep it going and bring in some people from season seven, maybe film it in a different location or do something different with it. Like I could see kind of like almost like an ultimate girls trip on like Housewives type thing where put, 6 to 7 people from the show at various seasons who maybe have some connection to one another, put them on a vacation for a week, live in a house together and see what happens. I think that could be interesting, but I don't think we necessarily need to them all like pretend they're living in LA for the summer and like that they're all best of friends and like all this stuff. Like I don't think we need to do all that pretending for the show, because I think that just kind of makes it a little bit worse. But I think that doing something like that could be an interesting thing once a year.
Yeah, I agree. I think something where they're not just like in an apartment for 6 weeks or whatever how long filming was. And just living there in LA and not actually doing their real life stuff. I mean, they had like influencer stuff and other things, but it just didn't feel like super organic to their actual lives.
Yeah, and I think that it wasn't, and that's why. Because I mean, a lot of them were just in LA for the summer, and like then they went back, and like they don't really live there. And so I think, yeah, just not having that whole conceit. Like it's like pretending on Vanderpump Rules that they pretended to work at Surf for a million years and they weren't really doing that. I think it's similar to that where it's like we don't need all of that. Like let's just put them in like in a house together for a week in a tropical location and see what happens. I think that you'd get a pretty interesting show because I think there's a lot of outspoken cast members on these shows who probably some of whom maybe they've dated the same guy or they have some sort of like interesting history with each other that could that or they have issues in the villa or they just putting I think you'd get some interesting results there with a show like that and it would kind of fill the void of like keep catching up on their lives since the villa. I think there's something there potentially if they want to keep this continuing going for year after year.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see that if they do evolve it or what will happen for Beyond the Villa or if they give it a new name for the next time.
Yeah, sure. Whatever it is. Yeah, it doesn't have to be Beyond the Villa. It could just be a
Yeah,
different show. But I think that this was a very specific thing that
yeah.
only really worked for this cast. And I don't think could be continued with like the season 7 cast based on where we saw there were at the reunion.
Yeah, agreed. Well, that's a good segue. Shall we talk
Yes.
about the reunion now of season 7, Love Island? So, as you said in the beginning of our episode here, we had a 2 hour long reunion episode, which I was like, this is longer than a movie. Like, I need to split this up. But we did get a lot of I feel like a lot of good segments here. I mean, some parts I was like, well, we could have left that out. But for the most part, I enjoyed this reunion. What are your thoughts, Michael?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I agree. I think that it was I agree. I think it could have been 90 minutes instead of 2 hours. There were certain parts that we didn't necessarily need to talk about for as long as we did, but I do feel like they covered pretty much everything I wanted covered. There
Yeah.
were a couple things as I thought about it in the days following that I saw brought up on social media where I was like, oh yeah, like I would have liked that to be talked about. I honestly can't even remember off the top of my head what it was. I can't remember honestly, but it was something where I was like, "Oh yeah, like that would have been good." But honestly, like I was pretty satisfied in the moment when I was watching it, where I was like, "Okay, I'm really glad they got brought that up." Oh yes, I'm glad they're talking about this. Like for the most part, every topic there were just a lot of people, and that's what made it take so long. But I do feel like with each of them, pretty much they cover. Oh, I remember what it was. It was the one thing that I wish they had mentioned was Amaya and Ace, their relationship, really didn't get discussed at all.
Yeah.
And I think that the question to Ace of like, why did you pick Amaya if you weren't going to give her a shot? I think that was the one thing that I think it was actually Ronnie and Ben, our friends from Watch Our Crappens, that mentioned that on their podcast that they would have liked to see them talk about that. And I agree. I think that was the one thing that I feel like was missed.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would have liked to see that. And also, I feel like the timing, this is like more of like they couldn't control this, but the timing of when this aired, I wish that also was filmed. We now had 2 weeks later it being filmed because of all the other downfall now of Amaya and Brian and Iris and Pepe. So parts of it, you're just like watching them holding hands there, and you're like, well, this doesn't last anymore.
Now,
So,
let me ask you, do you think that's by
yeah.
design?
Well, maybe their publicists or whoever they work with were like,
Not even,
just
yeah.
stay
Not even
together for.
that though. Like I think that it could have just been Pepe and Brian being like, "Well, now I don't have to be as careful anymore because I'm not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be if we break up, I'm not going to be questioned about it at the reunion at least."
Yeah. No, so they just didn't want to be seen as enemies on the reunion, but they can
Yeah.
be seen as enemies after the reunion.
Right, because they don't have to be questioned about it now. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, maybe I'll get a little bit of hate, but they'll move on and I don't have to sit on a reunion stage and answer a bunch of questions about it. So I don't really care to be in this relationship anymore. I want to go be with however many girls are in my DMs. And yeah, I think that there's certainly potential that that was very much on purpose, or maybe it was just bad timing by, our standards of watching the reunion. So who knows, but I think it's questionable.
Yeah, it is questionable. But let's get into the meat of the reunion. So we started off by seeing the final four couples on stage. So we had Amaya and Brian, Alandria and Nick, Huda and Chris, and Iris and Pepe. So then we got into Brian addressing the video that surfaced of him partying with other girls. Foreshadowing, I guess, here. But then he said that he was paid to host that event and that he had a lapse in judgment with him giving the crowd shots, but that Amaya agreed that he did nothing wrong. So I don't know. I mean, now obviously looking back, you're like, well, Brian just didn't want to be with Amaya and he just wanted to have the fame and the girls giving him attention and all that. But I mean, it was Amaya just very forgiving and was like, yeah, like it's all good.
Yeah, she's the type of person I think who is just very forgiving and very, I don't want to say naive. I think that's the wrong word, but I think just very believing in people, like wants to believe the best
Trusting.
in someone like Brian. Trusting, yeah, that's the right
Yeah.
word. I think she is very trusting, and that if Brian says he was not doing anything wrong there, then she's going to believe him. And until she sees actual physical proof otherwise, she's going to stand by him. And I think that shows the type of person that she is. And I think it shows the type of person that he is, that he would take advantage of that and not be the man that she deserves.
Yeah, and it's good at least that Amaya can see his true colors now and can move on from that and not be wasting any more of her time now with Brian.
Yeah,
Because
and
he
she's, I
won't.
don't know if you saw on Instagram, I saw something yesterday that that there was some video or pictures of him that were floating around, and I think an ex-girlfriend posted something saying that she has seen him since he got back from the villa and that maybe they're going to get back together. And she and Amaya commented something like, Brian, how could you? I don't deserve this. And then Brian posted a bunch of stuff saying like, I haven't seen this girl in years and this photo's old and blah blah blah, and like I don't know, it's a mess. There's going to be more that comes out with this relationship, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. No, I hadn't seen that yet, but that is some drama. I feel bad for Amaya if that's true, because it's never good to hear about those things after the fact. Even if you're now broken up, it still doesn't feel good to see that.
Yeah. No, for sure. That was somebody who she loved and
Yeah.
obviously was hoping to at the very least give it a good shot and have a relationship, a nice relationship for a while. And then if they go separate ways, they go separate ways. But for it to turn out like this so quickly, not ideal.
Nope, definitely not. And then we went to Iris and Pepe discussing how they were exclusive, but then not officially boyfriend girlfriend yet. But then obviously we know what happens now. But then Iris talks about meeting up with TJ after leaving the villa and that she got closure there. And TJ also was saying that, like in the green screen area, like, yeah, like that was good conversation we had.
Oh yeah, I liked
But
that they did that
then,
backstage, that we got
yeah,
to see the people backstage. That was nice. That was a nice touch.
I like that too because I'm obviously like there were so many people there, and then they more came out, but like we could see them watching them as they were speaking, which was good. That they could
Yeah.
also show us their thoughts as that was happening. And then we also heard that Pepe had spoken to Hannah, so they also seem to be having closure there too. So I guess it was more just like, okay, Iris and Pepe can move on, but I mean, not for long.
Yeah. Gosh, poor Iris. I really, really feel for her. That yeah, I think everybody really liked Pepe coming out of the season and we're very high on both of them as people, as a couple, and for Pepe to be proven to be not the man that I think a lot of us were hoping he was very sad. But I am glad that Iris met up with TJ and that they were able to have closure. I know a lot of people are standing for them to get together again and give that another try. and I'm wishing that she had just stuck with him in the villa too, maybe. But hindsight's 2020, and I think they would be cute together. I could see it. I could see them getting back together potentially, even, or at least like giving it a try, even if it doesn't actually work out as a relationship, just kind of seeing what happens and getting back in contact. So I'd be up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like TJ kind of made a move, not made a move, but he made a TikTok trend where it was like where they're kind of fake crying and then they like make a funny face and it's like because he found out about Iris and stuff like being or not like
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see he did
oh
that.
well so it's the I can't even recreate it but I'll
It's
send
like
it to
the
you.
like
Yeah,
yeah.
where you're like blocking your face
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
because he made it like literally the day after, or maybe even the day of like the news coming out about Pepe cheating on Iris. So then he was like, "Oh, this is good for me. I can slide in." But like, I don't know if that was just to like get views on his
I
TikTok
mean,
there.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big part of it. But also, it's like, well, I mean, he never said didn't want to try again with Iris, so maybe here's his shot.
Yeah. I mean, do they live close to each other? Where do they each live?
I don't. I think they live on opposite sides. She lives in
Ah.
California. I think he lives in Florida.
Yeah, couldn't be much further away than that from each
Yeah,
other. So, yeah, maybe okay, maybe not. Maybe that's
maybe.
not
I don't
gonna
know,
work
but I
out.
feel like he would definitely move to LA. Like he gives that vibe.
I 100% agree with that, and I'm slightly
Yeah,
surprised that he's not already, which is why I asked. But
yeah,
yeah, if they were to end up in the same city together, I could see them giving it a try. That's what I'll say.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll be keeping our eyes on their social media accounts. But it's great to see how active this cast is with social media too, because we get to see more into their
Hmm.
lives too, and like they do a lot of lives and other things like that too, which is kind of fun. I haven't been watching that many of them, but I just know like
Yeah.
they're happening.
I think that's
But
why this cast does feel very different than last season's cast, where I feel like last season, once they left the villa, we kind of didn't hear as much from them. Like, we knew that they were all very happy together, but at least from what I can remember, like, they didn't post all that much. Like, they weren't doing a bunch of lives and things like that. Like, here and there, sure, a little bit. But I feel like this cast just seems to come up on my For You page a lot more than last season's did. And maybe that's just what I'm seeing and not actually, show a difference of what they actually the amount they were posting. Maybe it just didn't come up as much for me. My algorithm might have been different, but it just feels like I'm just constantly seeing Love Island stuff ever since the finale, still to this day.
yeah, no, agreed. So it's good. They're doing well. They're getting their bag.
As they should. Can't blame them
Yeah,
for that. We would all do the same thing. You know, let get that back.
exactly. But next up, we also see how Chris and Huda obviously had an interesting end there in their relationship on in the villa, but then also seeing them now. Chris was saying it was weird seeing Huda after their breakup because they hadn't seen each other since that finale episode, and that he didn't respect the things that she's been saying in the press about him, and that didn't try to reach out. She didn't try to reach out until a few days before the reunion. But then Hoda said that she reached out because she was starting to see more hate towards him on her For You page, and so she wanted to thank him for being there for her in the villa. So it seemed like she was trying to make some amends, but he was not having it. And then Ariana asked Huda about her current relationship, and this was a funny moment because we've seen obviously pictures of Huda and Louis from Perfect Match, but she couldn't speak on it because of Netflix. So
Clearly,
it's
yes.
all out there, and she's the only one actually keeping her NDA that didn't she didn't even sign about these Netflix relationships. I love the Netflix actually like played on that, and they made their own billboard. Like was like, well, we can't speak on it. It's Netflix.
Yeah, they changed their bio to be like leave us out of it. Something
Yeah,
like IDK, don't ask us.
I know that was great. But it was just kind of funny. It was like, well, okay, thanks Huda for not giving us anything here, but okay.
Yeah, go girl, give us nothing. I loved this. This was hilarious. I want to use this at work and be like, why didn't you turn in your work? I'm like, sorry, Netflix, I can't. I'm gonna use this for everything now. Yeah, I mean, look, we know with Perfect Match, nobody was keeping their NDAs. AD and Ollie were announcing on Love is Blind finale for season 8 that they were pregnant and engaged, and like what are we doing here? She's not even on that show. She did not sign an NDA. she I'm sure Louis specifically asked her not to say anything, but by the time the reunion aired, Perfect Match finale had also aired, so we all knew
Yeah,
that Louis wasn't with anyone from that show anymore. And
exactly.
but sure, when the reunion filmed, that had not come out yet, but when it aired, it had, and they knew when this was airing. So I truly think that she just did not want to speak on her relationship and didn't want to be questioned about it, didn't want to be scrutinized. But like, then don't be seen out with him. Then you have to be more careful than that. I'm sorry, you are a public figure now, and if you don't want it to be talked about, then don't be seen out in public. Like you're clearly very fine with getting using it for social media and attention, and or he is at the very least, but then not okay with it being brought up and discussed on the reunion. Like it just doesn't work that way with Andy Cohen in particular.
Yeah, agreed. I felt like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Basically, here it's just like, well, you are being seen with him, so you might as well talk about it. But she didn't want to talk about it, so it is
Yep.
what it is.
Yeah.
But then we had, which we didn't get a ton of talk about Sierra here, which makes sense. But Nick was asked about Sierra and that he had no plans in speaking with her, since he was upset about the videos that she'd been posting. So obviously, Nick and Sierra had a pretty long relationship in the villa, but then when she got sent home, or she got taken off the show,
Removed.
and
Physically forcibly
removed. Yeah.
removed. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
She was taken away, and she had obviously still been posting stuff online, and Nick was like, yeah, I'm not having that. So obviously he's happy with Alandria now too, but it's good to see that he's fully moved on from her.
Yeah, I think in this case, when the show first ended, and and Nick and Alandria so quickly went into their relationship after Sierra left, I did feel bad for her in that regard. And look, I'm not saying like I think absolutely she deserved to be. I'm not defending her at all. She deserved to be removed from the villa. That was her actions that happened, and Nick has every right to move on after that. I did feel bad thinking that can't be easy for her to see and to know is happening and to see all over social media, Nick and Alandria, Nick Alandria Nation, like all of that could not be easy to see just days and weeks after you were happily in an exclusive relationship with him in the villa. However, that those videos that she's been posting and saying I survived being a villain on Love Island, and I like all of that, just then it's like, how do you can't feel bad for her anymore. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
now you are feeding into this victim narrative that you were painted to be this villain on the show, which she was not, first of all,
No.
and that she's looking for sympathy and attention, and then it's like, okay, I can't feel bad for you at this point anymore, because you are now going like doing things that are contrary to your apology after the fact, which I thought was very good, but now you are kind of contradicting that and showing them maybe you aren't as apologetic and remorseful as you seem to be.
Yeah, agreed. It's kind of like, can you read the room here? Like, doesn't
Yeah.
seem like we're watching the same show.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting though. And she's still posting a lot of videos. So I'm like, well,
And
I
post all you
mean,
want, girl. Like, but
yeah,
just don't post about that.
yeah, exactly. But next up, we had Shelly and Ace, and Clark and Taylor join on stage. They are both still together. First, we had that Shelly and Ace were asked about the curse of going exclusive. So they talked about how she thinks that the fans missed the point of the show, and that they were voted more on individual favorites than the strength of the couples. So they're kind of like, well, why did America not really support us here? But obviously, they're still a very strong couple, and to this day, like they're going strong. And I also like that they talked about like how they kind of met in the past and like cleared that all up, because like people obviously were portraying that in a way that like they had dated before the show, and like that wasn't the case. It was funny to hear Andy Cohen be like, well, you liked this photo back in 2021 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Well,
well, maybe I liked that, but like not from when 2021 was. Like I liked it when I followed
no,
her.
Andy fed him that. That was what bothered me, was that he didn't even
Yeah,
come up with that on his own. Andy said, "Well, maybe you went back afterwards after you met and liked old photos." And it's like, "Andy, don't give them that out. Like this is weird.
I
Like let them
that's
explain
true.
what happened. Don't give feed them that answer." That was annoying. But sorry, going
Yeah.
back to the curse of going exclusive. I have something to say about this because I
Okay.
thought, look, Austin was terrible at this reunion, but he had one good line here when he said, "It's the design that you created." And I think it's so true that both Ace and Shelley, when we saw, and we'll talk about this later, but like those extended clips of the deliberations, we saw both Shelley and Ace really took control of those votes and really were the
Mhm.
ones who came up with this narrative of let's focus on the people that are exploring their options and the people who are just like very quickly in these exclusive couples, they're the ones who deserve to go home. And it's like, okay, fine. But then when it happens to you, don't complain. Like
Yeah.
you're the ones who came up with that's the way that we should be doing these votes, is to allow the people who are taking advantage of the opportunity and exploring their options are the ones who deserve to be there. Well, Shelly and Ace, at the time when you went home, you were not exploring your options anymore. You were exclusive. And so by your own logic, it was time for you to go.
Exactly. It was just time for them, and it happened. But then also, we had Taylor admitting that he was really torn between picking Clark and Elandria during Casa Amor. So, Elandria says she's not sure she believes that now, that she's seen certain conversations that he had on the show, because he was talking about how he never wasn't really sure if he was attracted to her, other things like that. Like Elandria was like that, like I don't want someone who wants to be with me just like to try to see if it can work. Like she wanted to like be all in right away. So obviously with Taylor and Clark, it just picked like when they met, like it just felt like different than when Taylor and Elandria were together. So I think obviously now Taylor and Clark are still dating, so it obviously was the right choice for him. Also looking back at it, but it was at least like I don't know if he was telling the truth or not, but Alandra didn't think so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel bad for Alandria with this whole thing because I do think that she was uh much more into that relationship than he was. And I think that he very clearly was just never, I mean, I don't know how you cannot be physically attracted to Alandria. Like she is gorgeous, but I really do think that she thought that there was potential for that to grow, to build, and that he just after very quickly into their relationship just really wasn't seeing it. And I just think that he was never going to choose Alandria over Clark, and he just didn't have the guts to say it to her, and so he just kind of strung her along and made her think that there was a chance when there really wasn't.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now it's good that Landrick was able to be with Nick, but in the time, it's obviously like, well, that's not good of Taylor to string her along there. But she ended up finding her happiness, so it's still good.
Yes, it
Um,
all worked out the way it was supposed to, but I'm sure it cannot be easy to relive and talk about. And that was not a great time for her.
For sure. And next up, we had the Casa Amor guys and girls. plus Austin, TJ, and Andriana join on stage. So big full stage now. And Coco was called out for calling some of the girls standoffish on podcasts. And she specifically mentioned Alandria. So Alandria said that Coco was feeding into that narrative of Shelly and Alandria being mean girls instead of speaking to her experience and then defending them when she got out of the villa. So Alandria was like, why are you saying this? Like, this isn't how it actually happened. You're just portraying this like it's not true in that way. So I felt bad for Alandria there. But I actually didn't listen to that podcast that they're talking about, but a lot of mention of podcasts in these segments here.
Yeah, I had not seen the full podcast either, so I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't necessarily have the full context. But from what we saw, from what I have seen, the clips and what we saw in the reunion, of course, I think that Coco was very much trying to make a name for herself, trying to, like feed into the public narrative, it did seem like. And I think it's very easy and very often that reality stars do this. We talk about this all the time on shows like Housewives, where people will one season, act one way towards a person, and then as it's airing, they find out that this audience is on that person's side, and then suddenly the next season it's like, I really actually love you and I just want to make amends. And I think that Coco was the type of person who seemingly was doing this, where she, was fine. Everything was fine in the villa. And then as soon as she got out, and at that time, it was around the time of the Stand on Business Challenge, where Shelly and Alandria and Sierra were getting a lot of hate online because people felt like they were mean girl bullies, in quotes. And I think that she was very quick to fall into that and be like, yeah, you're right, they are. And, she's hoping that that'll get her lots of followers and attention because she is agreeing with what America's saying. And it doesn't ever work like that because America is very fickle. They will feel one way about a person one day and then feel another way another time. And you have to just stick to what you truly believe because eventually they're going to come around and be on your side at some point. And what you don't want to do is be the type of person who's flip floppy because then you're loyal to nobody and nobody's going to like you.
Yeah, exactly. So she wanted some fame and didn't really work out in her favor.
Yeah.
But I mean, she got some airtime here, so I guess it kind of did work out somewhat.
Hey, if that's what she's going for, she certainly got some like 5 minutes of airtime on this reunion. So good for her, girl.
Yep, exactly. But next we had Austin to talk about his relationship with Jaden. Austin really didn't seem like he wanted to be there at this reunion. Not really listening.
What
Not
was he
really giving
on?
I don't know.
He's on something.
Asleep. Like, yeah. Like, did he sleep the night before? I don't know.
I don't know.
But he said that he didn't know what happened between him and Jaden, and then Jaden was saying how she asked him to let her know if he planned on seeing other girls, and then he just neglected to do that. So, or to say if he did. Like, he didn't give us anything here. But obviously we know that they did not continue dating after the show, which I don't think it was a surprise to anyone here. It didn't really seem like they would last outside the show. Also, I heard Jaden on podcasts being like, yeah, we live in like opposite sides of the country. So really long distance wasn't really going to seem to be that feasible for them either. So it kind of just ended without even starting.
Yeah, the whole time I'm just thinking, thank God Shelly didn't end up with Ace because he would have done that to her too.
With
And
Austin.
imagine,
Yeah.
yeah, I almost
Yeah.
forgot that they were like paired up at the beginning. That feels like so long
Oh my
ago.
gosh.
But imagine, yeah, if Shelley had been the entire time in the villa with Austin and thought she was developing something really real and gave up on Ace for Austin and just decided to move forward with that relationship, and then he just does this exact same thing to her, like that would have been awful. And so at least Shelley seemingly end up with someone who wants to be with her, and Austin, you know, at least did this to somebody who he was only in the villa with for like less than a week. And I feel bad for Jaden because that sucks. But it seemed like she wasn't necessarily thinking that this was going to be some amazing love story. That I think basically it seemed like she was just like, let's give it a try. Let's see, let's go on a date or two and see what happens and see if we're compatible in the real world. And he just wasn't even interested in doing that with her. So I do feel bad, but it doesn't seem like she was super, super heartbroken, just kind of bummed out more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thinking about Shelly and Austin feels like a lifetime ago.
Doesn't
Like,
it? I
that's
know.
actually crazy.
I know, but it was only less than 3 months ago.
Wow. So much is happening since then. But then we also had some unseen footage of Huda telling Shelly that she was going to bring Chris back to the villa from Casa Amor so they could both explore him because Huda was saying that she wanted to get to know Chris, but that she also wanted Shelly to continue to explore things with him. So Hilda and Shelly here kind of disagreed on what this conversation entailed. Shelly said that she still didn't feel like that was showing the full context of the conversation because she felt like Huda was just saying like, "Oh, I'm bringing him for you, for you, for you," and like not just like being like, "Okay, yeah, like we can both do it." But then obviously, like we obviously see Huda and Chris actually get together, and Shelly is with Ace now. But like in general, like going back into the timing of this occurring, like it was some drama because Shelly thought her and Huda were close, and like then for her to not kind of stand or try Huda trying to claim she's a girl's girl and then like fully not be was hurtful for her. So yeah, it was a kind of more drama than I expected to see between the two of them here, but I mean, it makes sense what was happening.
Yeah, this is a tricky one for me because based on the clip that we saw, the extended clip of Huda telling Shelly that this was her plan, Huda does, to her credit, say,
Yeah.
I'm doing this for you, but I am also doing this for me. Like, this is for both of us. I want both of us to have the chance to explore things with Chris and see what happens. Like, I am interested. Then we're having good conversations. There's definitely potential here, but I also know that you have feelings for him and you want to continue to explore things as well. So I want to do this for you too. Now, I think that this, in that case, that does validate what Huda has been saying, that she did say this was for both of us, not just for Shelley. However,
Yeah.
Shelley is said at the reunion, like, yes, that conversation happened, but there were also multiple other conversations after that where she was really stressing, I'm doing this for you. Like, that was the main moral of why she was telling her, was that this is for you. And the for me was maybe not as big of a factor. So I will give Shelley the benefit of the doubt and say that that probably did happen. And in that case, yeah, I can see how Shelley then would be a little blindsided by Huda just going all in on Chris and not necessarily abiding by what she was saying, and that, giving Shelley also that chance. So I think that it's tricky. There's no way we're ever going to see this isn't Big Brother. We don't get live feeds. So I think that as much as it seems like we do see on this show by it being in real time, and we see a good amount of more than we do on most other shows, we don't see everything. And I don't want to, bash Shelley and say, that she was lying because we saw this clip, when it's very possible that if we saw the full entire context, we would understand more of her point.
Agreed. Yeah, it did feel interesting because then when Shelly's like, "Well, there were more clips," like, why didn't they try to bring those into these also? Like, we just got
It's already a
like a
2 hour
three.
show, Molly.
Well, I know, but like they could have spliced up parts of it and like
Yeah.
not been as long, and like because that first clip was a pretty long one too, or like
Yeah, they could do
the
like
one
a
that showed.
montage of every
Yeah,
time Huda says, "This is for you. This is for you. I'm doing
yeah,
this for you." Like they could do that, I'm sure. But then we'd say, "Well, let's see the full conversation. Maybe Huda said it's for me just as many times." Like I just don't think you're ever going to, without having literal live feeds. I don't think you're ever going to be able to see the full context. And even when you do, even if you saw 24 hours a day, somehow there would be something that we missed in one room that happened at some point, that it's just, it's so hard to say. Like, I think we have to go by what we're seeing on the show, but it's hard when they're claiming there's more that we just don't see, because how can you refute that?
yeah. No, that's true. I mean, obviously, now we we know how things end with Huda and Chris, so it's kind of like, well, did you need to go through that extent? But I mean, it's interesting now for us
Who
as
knows?
viewers to
Yeah,
talk
you never
about
know
it.
until it
And
happens.
yeah, it's still some drama we got in this episode, so it was fun to see it at least play out
Hmm.
on the reunion. But then we had Hannah and Charlie join us on stage. So Charlie said that he was hurt by Amaya's vote to send him home and thinks that it should have been Taylor who went home that night since he wasn't in a strong relationship at that time. And then Charlie and Hannah both, they don't see each other in a really romantic way. We got that closure there too. But it was nice to see Charlie back here. I feel like, I mean, it's been a while since he's been on our screen there. But it seems like him and Hannah just are like, yeah, like we're not trying this anymore.
Yeah, I have a theory that is just totally I came up with in my brain. I have not heard this alleged anywhere. I don't know anything. But Hannah, when she did her exit interviews after leaving the villa, she was saying, because I think there was a question about, like, why didn't you go for Austin or why didn't you go for someone? I don't remember what the question was. But basically, she alluded to the fact that she is very much liberal and that she would not go for any of the guys in the villa who she knew to be conservatives. And Charlie, we've seen on social media when he was in the villa, there were things circulating that appeared to indicate that potentially he was a conservative. And I don't think Hannah knew that. Probably Charlie, I mean, he's British. Maybe she didn't even ask him. But I think that maybe Hannah saw this after leaving the villa and immediately was turned off by him after knowing that. And that's the vibe I got of just being like, no, I don't think there's any potential here. Like, it's possible that something just happened between them, or maybe it's just like, hey, we haven't talked. Like, I don't see it happening. But the vibe I got is like, oh, I found out something about him that I don't like. And that's the only thing I can think of that would make her just kind of immediately turn in that way.
Yeah, no, I could see that also. And also, she had already moved on with Pepe at that point,
Hmm.
also in the show. So I think she was just like, all right, he was a whole 3 days ago. Like, I don't need him anymore, also after leaving the villa. But yeah, I think that politics definitely has a reason in that as well.
Yeah.
But next up, this was an interesting part of the reunion. We got to see the full deliberation between the girls when they decided to send home Hannah. So we got all of the conversations we were seeing with Shelly and how she was the main one to initially bring up the idea of going with Hannah since she hadn't explored as much as Amaya and Iris. And then we see Hannah then get emotional, but she says that she doesn't hold a grudge against any of them and that she doesn't agree with the fans who say that they're not her real friends. So it seems like Hannah's forgiven them and they can still be friends and move on, which is, I guess that's nice of her to do that. But I'm like a little bit surprised that even after seeing like this whole deliberation there, but it did seem like they didn't want to send Hannah home. So I think that's also why I was like, well, they they had to choose someone, and at the end, like they just happened to all agree on being Hannah. So it just didn't work out for Hannah there, but at least they're still friends.
Yeah, no, I think Hannah's the sweetest. I really want to see her on Love Island Games. I really think she would be so perfect for that, and I hope that she gets another chance on there because, she has the story that I think people would really root for her. Like she's kind of like your perfect bachelorette option in a way. You know what I mean? Like that person who just
Yeah.
kind of got dumped in the worst way and everyone felt so bad for her, and now she has her chance for redemption. So I think she's like a perfect person for Love Island games. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for her. I don't necessarily personally agree with the logic that the other girls used because I think that someone like Hannah was showing that she was exploring because as soon as Charlie left, she moved on and she explored and she fell, very quickly for Pepe. And I think that's exactly what you're supposed to do on Love Island. And I just don't see that logic. I think that honestly, like I love Amaya. I think maybe well, no, because I think we all felt bad for Amaya with the Ace thing. I think maybe it should have been Iris just because like I don't know, I feel bad for like she got kind of screwed, would have gotten kind of screwed there too, but at least like I don't know, there's really no good option. I just think I would have understood Amaya or Iris more than I understood Hannah. Like Hannah was the one who I was like, oh, they're not going to choose her. Like that's the least likely, in my opinion, that they would have picked. And so I don't think there's any one of those three who's just like the obvious easy choice. All of them would have sucked, but I just don't necessarily personally agree with it, but I'm glad that Hannah doesn't hold anything against the girls because I don't think that they intentionally did anything to try to hurt her. Like they just had to choose somebody, and the Shelley was really the most vocal one who that was her logic because I think she probably got that from Ace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, also Hannah's like almost at nearly 1 million followers, I think, on her
Wow.
TikTok and Instagram. So like she is like for being sent home this early, I guess, from the season, like she's gotten a lot of traction and love from it. So kind of worked out for her.
I think she went home exactly at the right time, honestly, for that because you get home, she's on the show for a good amount of time. People remember her. And then also the show is still airing, and so she's still very relevant. The show is very relevant in that way when she is actually posting, and people are hoping that she'll post things about Love Island, and like I think that's kind of the perfect time, whereas when the others get home, like yeah, they're bigger names because they were on there longer, but then the show's over, so it's maybe not quite as relevant. Like people aren't as like fully engaged, and so I think that she kind of left right at that perfect point in terms of like actually getting a following on social media from it. So good for her.
Yeah, for sure. And next up, which is our last segment here, we had Belle Dasha and Jeremiah join on stage. So here we get now everyone's back. We see
But I
everyone
think
back.
the Casa girls and guys were backstage at this
Well,
point,
they
right?
left. I know. I meant like
Yeah.
now we have the full circle
Oh
of
yeah, these are
seeing
the last
everyone.
editions. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I said it wrong, but you understood.
Yeah.
um, but then, so Jeremiah and Huda discussed their relationship, and Huda said that she thought Jeremiah love bombed her, which then Jeremiah denies. And then Ace also was chiming in here saying he heard conversations that Jeremiah was having with other guys about money and followers, which then made him think that Jeremiah was there for the quote unquote wrong reasons, as we know in Bachelor World. Are you there for the
The
right
worst
reasons?
possible thing you could say about someone. Like call them a
No, I
murderer
know.
before you say they're there for the wrong reasons.
Like Ace, are you there for the wrong reasons? You also have 1 million followers. You're trying to become more famous. Like no
Trying
one here.
to
You're on reality
yeah.
TV. You already know Love Island blew up last year. Like no one in their right is like gonna say, "Oh, I only wanted to find love." Like
Well,
that's just not possible.
and Ace has his music career he's trying to promote and coming up with songs about being the ringleader and clock it and all the stuff which very catchy, but look, he's clearly there, like yes, he's probably also there for love, but he's also hoping to promote his music and all of that, and just as Jeremiah, I'm sure, can be there for multiple reasons, love being one of them. And clearly, he was even like for a time okay with being a stepfather, like trying to wrap his mind around that. Like that shows you a lot that he was even willing to look past that and be accepting of Huda and her child, and that's more than he bargained for by coming on this show. But because he really was trying to make it work with Huda, he was even willing to be a stepfather potentially as well. So I think that says that a lot, that he was there for the right reasons in addition to whatever else maybe any everyone else is there for.
Yeah, exactly. And this also made me feel for Jeremiah here when we saw then the full deliberation between the boys of deciding to send him home. So we saw that Taylor and Ace wanted Jeremiah out because of him not giving Iris a chance and then moving straight to Adriana, I cannot say her name.
I know
Adriana,
Andrena, I think is
Andrina?
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like so many vowels. Andrina, I
I
think it
know.
is.
Apologies if we're saying it wrong,
Yeah.
Andrena.
I know I feel like I'm missing the I in it. Andriana. I don't know. But it's okay. We see that deliberation, and then Nick disagreed and wanted to send home Austin. So it did seem like the guys here kind of felt bad that they're like, maybe we actually should have sent Austin home, which like Ace also is responding to allegations about him being the ringleader in the villa, and then Jeremiah agrees with this, but then Ace says that they're all grown men and that he can't tell anyone what to do. And also seeing this back kind of showed that it wasn't just Ace trying to get out Jeremiah here. Like Taylor also was saying that. So, I mean, it kind of made me realize that, like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have just put all that blame on Ace. But, I mean, he was vocal on it too.
I mean, look, I think that yes, you could say they are all full grown adults. They can all make their own decisions, and I agree with that. But I think that you can also be somebody who's trying to make certain things happen and get your way, and that you are the most vocal and you are bragging about being a leader and somebody who has an opinion, and that's great. I mean, you could probably teach Vince something about that. But I I think that there two things can be true. I think you can say that yes, everybody has the ability to make their own decisions, but also you can say, yeah, Ace tried, if nothing else, to be the decision maker, the leader of the group. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. Look, there is money at the end of this show. I am always somebody who says, if this was purely a show just about love, there would be no money at the end of it. But there is, and so there is a level of gameplay. There are eliminations. And I don't begrudge anyone for considering that when making decisions. Just own it. That's all I ask for, is just say, yeah, I am trying to do a little gameplay here and there. And that's not to say that I'm also not hoping to find love at the end of the day. But, we want to win too. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Maybe that's a hot take.
Yeah, I mean, put Ace on the Traitors. That would be
I think
fun.
that would be a really, really good casting choice, actually. I would be here for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, he was thinking strategically in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think about coming on to Love Island, but
Hmm.
he was thinking about it.
Put him on House of Villains.
Yeah, true. So at least, I mean, it's working out for him. It seems like, even if he's gotten some hate, he's gonna get the clout. So I mean, obviously
Yeah.
now also with him and Shelly being so happy, it's like they do have fans like who are supporting them, watching their lives
Hmm.
and all that. So he's not just the villain, but he is
No, and
a fan of
I
that.
and I don't want this to get misconstrued. I really actually like them as a couple. I think that
Yeah,
they are one of the strongest couples to come out of this. I think that they have a lot of potential to go the long distance here and get married and have kids and be happily in love forever. Like, I hope that for them. I love Shelley, and I just wish that he would own what we all saw with our own two eyes and not try to deny it, thinking that it's some horrible thing that he's being accused of, when I actually don't think it is. I think it's just people want him to be like, yeah, I was trying to get Jeremiah out, and I'm a leader in my life, and I have strong opinions. And he kind of said that, but then he just kind of also then tried to deny being a leader, saying everybody has their own opinions and can do their own thing. So I just think, like, you can't say both, and that's the only place that I have an issue.
yeah, because he's contradicting himself also in his
Exactly.
answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so he's definitely probably he's gonna learn from his lessons hopefully and more stand on what he decides in the future. Obviously, if we see him again, maybe we'll see that growth. But right now, we're seeing him on the reunion, so it's still pretty fresh on when he's just gone out of being in the villa. So
Mhm.
more to come probably on that. But well, at least we got some closure on that, the ringleader conversation for now.
Yes.
But then we had Huda talking about how she felt isolated and bullied in the villa, and that Alandria is hurt that Huda has been saying, but not listing who, because then many of Huda's fans then assumed that it was one of her that Alandria was one of her bullies, but then having them send her hate and everything like racist attacks and all that, like Elandria and Shelley were just getting all that, even though because Hoda had said things, but not giving anyone's particular who it was. But then they never, Hoda never said anything about like don't give these people hate, like it wasn't them. So then that caused Elandria and Shelley to unfollow Hoda, and then they have not spoken since. So they seem to just not want to be friends with Hoda if she's not willing to stand up for Elandria and Shelley there and trying to combat those haters.
Yeah, I really look, I do think that Huda probably did feel bullied and whatever, isolated in the villa. Like, I could see that after a certain amount of time when she and Jeremiah were at their most toxic. I think that she was kind of on an island of her own. I think everybody was sick of their fighting, and that uh, they probably did kind of not want to spend a ton of time with her because all she wanted to talk about was Jeremiah and how toxic their relationship was and how much she hated him. So I do think that she is probably telling the truth when she says she felt isolated. However, it's easy to forget that that is of her own doing. That she was acting very toxic, that she was screaming and throwing things, and like she was not the easiest person to be around at that time, I feel. And so I think that when Huda says things like that, she neglects to include that there is a reason why people felt that way towards her in the villa. And
Yeah.
it's awful that Alandria and Shelley asked Huda to post something to stop the hate that they were getting, the racist attacks. Alandria saying that someone put her face on George Floyd. That is disgusting. That is inhumane. And the fact that Huda knew about this, they were living in an Airbnb together at the time after the show, and they said to Huda, please post something to telling your fans to stop attacking us in this way. And the fact that she said she would do it and never did is really, really gross. And I don't think that I could ever forgive someone for that. And Huda can say, look, like, I'm sure that she is also getting a ton of hate. And I think that's also just as horrible and just as disgusting. But I don't believe, because I don't think Huda said this, that she ever asked Shelley and Alandria to post something because their fans were sending her hate. So I don't think she can say that they didn't do the same thing because she never asked them to do the same thing. And so they have no way of knowing that she's getting whatever hate she's getting without her saying anything to them. So I think a lot of people are, trying to say both sides of this and what about it and whatever. Like, I don't think you can do that because she did not ask them to do that, whereas they did specifically ask her to do it and she never did and said she would. And I don't blame them for not wanting to be friends with her.
Yeah, agreed. It's just not worth that. If she's not going to support you, then don't support her. So just they moved on from that. But then we also have the extended clip here of the heart rate challenge with Huda and Ace and Shelly and Chris. And Huda did admit that she took it a step too far and that she doesn't think that Shelly overreacted there. So I feel like overall, like obviously we were wanting to see this extended clip for a while, and honestly, I don't think it was like as crazy as I was expecting it. I don't know what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I'm glad they showed it to us, and obviously, like, yeah, you're not actually paired up with this person. Like, looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, like these challenges that I do like are pretty risque.
Oh my God, they were
And
showing like a marathon on Bravo, I believe, the other day, and they were showing the like BDSM episode where they were all like on the pole and whatever, and they were all making out with each other blindfolded, and like I was like, oh my God, what is this show? I'm like, oh, it's Love Island. I watched that.
yeah. No, and then someone was like, "Oh, this is soft porn," and TJ is like, "No, this is not soft."
Yeah. But
Like,
yeah, no, I agree with you. When I was watching the extended clip, I was like, what part didn't we see of that before? Because I was like, like in my memory, it was like exactly that. Like I
yeah,
don't
I
feel
think
like I
it
saw
was
anything
just
where I was
the
like,
end.
whoa,
It was when I think when she shook her ass on his face,
didn't
around
we
his
see that?
butt. I don't think it was like turned around.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe
I
not.
don't
Okay.
know. We can go
I
back
could
to
have
the episode.
sworn, like, and if you had asked
Yeah.
me, like, if you showed me just that part
Oh,
of it and you're like, have you seen this clip before? I would say, yeah, of course. Like, but I guess not. I guess not. I just like, maybe I just heard them say that's what she did. And so
yeah.
it just kind of like, what is that called when it like gets in your mind as like a memory, but it's like a fake memory? I
Like
don't know.
like a bias to like there's a word for
Yeah,
it,
there's some word for
but
it. But,
yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think this is where like the one small part where I kind of do defend Huda in a way where I'm like, there is like a lot of everyone says it's a challenge, it's a challenge, it's a challenge, and then when I think you do need to like kind of say, okay, this is what we're willing to do with each other's partners, and this is what we're not willing to do. And then if you cross that line, then it's like, okay, this was explicitly stated. Like, but if you keep saying week after week, it's a challenge, do whatever, then when you do whatever and it's not okay, suddenly it's like, this is maybe a little bit of a gray area. But I do think that Ace should have gotten just as much crap from Shelley as Huda did because he did not seem upset by it when it was happening. And the fact that she's the only one who really got the hate from her, that I don't necessarily agree with. But yeah, I mean, probably she shouldn't have. She didn't need to do everything she did either. So, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a wash.
Yeah, at this point, it's like, wow, looking back on it, I'm like, that felt like so long ago, which it was for us to watch that a while ago with all the other content we've been getting. So it was nice to though, like have more of the closure and the conversations from a whole of the season and seeing Andy and Ariana both there to host it. I think they did
They
a
were
great
great. Yeah.
job. Yeah. So I'm happy with this reunion and that puts the end to season 7 of Love Island. So we'll have to wait till next summer for season 8. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of other reality TV going on. Oh, but Live Island
Including
Games.
Love Island Games in just 2 weeks.
Yes. Wait, that's okay. Well, I mean, from a real season of Love Island, but Love Island Games
Sure.
coming up
Yeah.
soon, which that will be exciting. So we're not done with Love Island franchise yet. Um,
No.
for we still got that coming up. But make sure that you're subscribed to us at Let's Chat Reality wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social media. And we'll be back next week chatting more reality TV. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.